Welcome to Fiction. Let's get started by creating a project. First, you'll want to select the New Project button, which will take you to your project dashboard. Now, by default, this will be untitled. Click into the title box and update it to name your project. Next, you can change some metadata about your project, including the genre and whether it's going to be based on chapters or scenes. Finally, click into the synopsis box. In this way, you can write a brief description about your new story. You can create a new character by either clicking Characters from the Assets submenu or navigating to the Characters page from the Navigation Assets menu in the Navigation pane. From the Characters page, click New Character to get started. You will be presented with some reasonable defaults at first, but you can click anywhere on the resulting character card to modify its value. You can change the color code of this character by clicking on the Paint button. To change the layout and add gender and a character role attribute to the card, click on the Settings button. You can customize the card by dragging tiles from the list on the left to the layout on the right. Traits, attributes, and labels are special tiles where you can change the name presented on the card by clicking it and typing a new name. Modify the values of each tile on the card by clicking on the value. If you've added a gender and a role, you can modify them simply by clicking on them to cycle through their values. You can change the image on your card by clicking it to bring it up on the image selector model. You can select from a list of predefined art or upload your own image. Change the zoom level of the image by dragging the zoom bar and adjust the positioning of the image as it would appear on the card. You can do so by dragging the image around the model. Click the flip button beneath the card to modify the back of the card, and when you are finished, click the Save button to save your changes. You can repeat these steps for the artifacts and setting builders as well. From your project dashboard, navigate to the Chapter Outline page by clicking on the Tools button in the Navigation pane or by clicking on the Chapter Outline tile. Get started with outlining by adding a new chapter using the New Chapter button. Add a tile and a description for your new chapter by clicking into their respective input boxes. Next, you can provide a tag for your chapter if you want to keep track of what story beats your chapter is supposed to hit. And additionally, you can keep track of what characters, artifacts, and settings will be present in your chapter. This will serve as a useful visual indicator when looking at your chapter outline at a glance. Next, you can add additional chapters to your outline as necessary. You can reorder your chapter by dragging on the drag handle to the left of the title. You can also modify a chapter by selecting the pencil next to the tag. Navigate to the Timelines page by clicking the Tools button in the Navigation pane or by clicking on the Timelines tile. Get started by adding a new timeline. The timeline is used to keep track of the chronological events of your story, agnostic to how you would plan to unfold a story to the reader. This feature is especially useful in frame stories or any story that deals with time travel or a reality distortion. If there are large gaps in the events in your timeline, it is recommended that you separate them into different timelines or use the storyboard feature. You may want to add a title and description for your timeline. Pick whether you want to use actual dates or relative dates. Everything in the timeline is oriented around the where and when. Click the plus button to add settings to your vertical axis. You can also optionally add labels to the vertical axis to help group your settings categorically. Move the settings and labels along the vertical axis by dragging their drag handle. Next, add an event to a setting. Add a name for your event and an optional description. Next, you'll want to select a date range for the event to take place. This will determine the horizontal space the event will assume on your timeline. You can also add characters and artifacts to your events to keep track of where they are at any given point on your timeline. You can change the width of each day on the timeline by using the slider on the top left corner. To navigate to the Relationships page, click on the Tools button in the Navigation pane or click on the Relationships tile. The Relationships feature can be used to keep track of interpersonal relationships between your characters, settings, and artifacts in a free-form canvas. Get started by clicking the New Relationship button. Provide a name and description for this relationship canvas to continue. Add characters, artifacts, or settings to the canvas by clicking their corresponding buttons on the Tools pane. Drag your cards wherever you want on the canvas. You can create relationships by dragging lines between the drag handles of the card. Change the line style and line color in the Tools pane. Zoom in and out of the canvas by scrolling. And modify the label of the relationship by clicking into the input box. Hit Enter when you're finished. To navigate to the Storyboard page, click the Tools button in the Navigation pane or click on the Storyboard tile. The Storyboard feature is meant to detail out a non-spatial sequence of events for a scene or a timeline with large gaps. Provide your storyboard with a name to get started. Add a card to the storyboard. Add any characters, artifacts, or settings that are relevant to this card as well. Add a title and a description to the card. Add multiple cards to your storyboard by clicking the Add New Card button. You can reorder the cards on the storyboard using the drag handle at the bottom.